The massive space station hung in the void like a crystal flower, its 12 arms reaching out toward the stars. Each arm belonged to a different alien species, all part of the Galactic Council that had ruled this section of space for over 3,000 years. Today they would decide the fate of a small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Kate Morrison stepped through the airlock of her shuttle and into the station's central chamber. The artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air carried strange scents that made her nose twitch. She wore her dress uniform, dark blue with silver trim, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent 30 years in space. Behind her walked Captain Jake Sullivan, a man with sharp eyes who missed nothing. He had insisted on coming as her military advisor, though both of them knew the real reason. The humans needed to see what they were dealing with, and Sullivan was the best at reading alien technology. The central chamber was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 different types of seats surrounded a circular platform in the center, each designed for a different alien body. Some of the council members looked almost human, while others were so strange that Morrison had to remind herself not to stare. Chancellor Sci-Fi of the Vorthok Empire sat in what looked like a throne made of living crystal. His body was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow from within. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Admiral Morrison of Earth," he said, "you have come to request membership in the Galactic Trade Federation. We have reviewed your application and your species' technological capabilities." Morrison nodded. "Thank you, Chancellor. Humanity is eager to join the galactic community and contribute to peace and prosperity among the stars." A sound like buzzing filled the air as the Kalani hive mind speaker responded. The creature looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Your species shows promise," the speaker said, "but your technology remains primitive. You still use fusion drives for propulsion and chemical rockets to escape your planet's gravity. These methods are thousands of years behind current galactic standards." Sullivan watched the alien ships through the chamber's transparent walls. He could see the energy readings on his handheld scanner, noting the quantum field manipulators and zero-point energy systems that powered their vessels. The technology was impressive but not impossible to understand. A new voice joined the conversation, this one sounding like water flowing over rocks. The Nereid representative was an amphibious being that reminded Morrison of Earth's dolphins, if dolphins could walk upright and had 4 arms. Furthermore, the Nereid said, "Your species has a history of violence and conflict. You have only recently achieved peace on your own world. How can we trust you among the stars?" Morrison felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "Every species has gone through periods of conflict. We've learned from our mistakes and established a unified planetary government dedicated to peaceful exploration and trade." Chancellor Sci-Fi raised one crystalline hand. "We do not doubt your intentions, Admiral. However, membership in the Federation requires certain technological and social standards. Your species simply does not meet these requirements at this time." The other council members murmured their agreement. Morrison could see the dismissal in their eyes, the way they looked at her like a child who had wandered into an adult conversation. However, the Chancellor continued, "We are prepared to offer Earth observer status. You may send representatives to attend council meetings and participate in cultural exchanges. Perhaps in a few centuries, when your species has advanced sufficiently, we can revisit the question of full membership." Morrison exchanged a quick glance with Sullivan. Observer status was exactly what they had expected, though it still stung, to be treated like primitives. She had commanded starships that could cross solar systems in weeks, fought in battles among the asteroid belts, and helped establish humanity's first colonies beyond Earth. Yet to these aliens, she was little more than a barbarian with a spaceship. "We accept observer status," she said with dignity. "Earth looks forward to learning from the wisdom of the Galactic Council." The formal ceremony took only a few minutes. Morrison received a small device that would allow her to attend council meetings virtually, and several data chips containing basic information about galactic law and customs. The aliens were polite but distant, already turning their attention to more important matters. As Morrison and Sullivan walked back to their shuttle, the captain activated a secure communication channel on his wrist device. The signal would take several minutes to reach Earth, but it was encrypted with quantum keys that no known technology could break. "Admiral Morrison to Fleet Command," she said quietly. "Package delivery confirmed. The Council has granted us observer status as predicted. Phase 2 is authorized." Back on Earth, deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Ben Clark received the transmission in a chamber that officially did not exist. The room was filled with holographic displays showing star charts and technical readouts that would have amazed the Galactic Council if they had been allowed to see them. Clark was a veteran of humanity's secret space program, the one that had been developing in parallel with the public space exploration efforts. While the world celebrated the first Mars colonies and asteroid mining operations, Clark's people had been working on something far more ambitious. Dr. Lisa Park stood beside him, her eyes bright with excitement. She was young for such an important position, but her understanding of theoretical physics had made the entire project possible. The equations covering the walls behind her looked like pure mathematics, but they described something that would change the galaxy forever. "How long until the first ships are ready?" Clark asked. "The Houston finished its final tests yesterday," Park replied. "Captain Brooks reports all systems are operating within normal parameters. The other ships in the fleet should be ready within the week." Clark nodded and looked at the largest holographic display, which showed the positions of human ships throughout local space. To any outside observer, they would appear to be standard fusion-powered vessels, identical to the ones the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that what they could see was all that existed. They had no idea that humanity had been hiding its true capabilities for over 50 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. "Send the signal," Clark said. "It's time to show the galaxy what humans have really been building." The message went out on channels that the Galactic Council's sensors couldn't detect, reaching ships that existed in spaces the aliens didn't know were possible. Soon, the galaxy would learn that Earth's children had grown up while no one was watching. 3 months after the council meeting, the galaxy's most advanced sensor networks began detecting something impossible. Ships were moving through space at speeds that should not exist, traveling at 97% of light speed without using any known propulsion system. The first alarm came from a Kalani scout ship patrolling the outer rim of their territory. The insectoid captain stared at his display screens in confusion as 3 human vessels appeared on his sensors, moving faster than anything he had ever seen. The ships were not using hyperspace jumps or wormhole generators. They were flying through normal space at speeds that violated every law of physics the Kalani understood. "This cannot be correct," the captain buzzed to his crew. "Run full diagnostics on all sensor systems." The diagnostics came back clean. The sensors were working perfectly. The human ships were real, and they were doing the impossible. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Vorthak monitoring stations recorded human vessels crossing entire star systems in hours rather than months. Nereid trade ships watched in amazement as Earth's vessels overtook them at speeds that should have required exotic matter and energy sources beyond imagination. On the Terran battleship Houston, Captain Ryan Brooks stood on his bridge watching the tactical display with quiet satisfaction. The ship's Alcubierre drive was performing even better than the scientists had predicted. Around the Houston, space itself was being compressed and expanded, creating a bubble that allowed the massive warship to surf through the fabric of reality itself. "How are the drive systems holding up, Amy?" Brooks asked his chief engineer. Lieutenant Amy Davis checked her displays and smiled. "All systems green, Captain. The spatial distortion field is stable, and we're maintaining 97% light speed with minimal energy expenditure. The aliens have no idea what they're looking at." Brooks nodded. The Alcubierre drive was humanity's greatest secret. 50 years ago, Earth scientists had cracked the mathematics of space-time manipulation. While the public celebrated chemical rockets and fusion drives, the real space program had been developing technology that made alien propulsion systems look like steam engines. The key was not to push against space, but to move space itself. The Houston was not traveling at light speed. Instead, it was riding inside a bubble of compressed space-time, technically standing still while the universe moved around it. The effect was the same, but the physics were completely different from anything the galactic powers understood. In the crystal chambers of the Vorthak Empire, Chancellor Zexai called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. The holographic displays showed human ships appearing at the edges of star systems, without any jump signatures or energy buildups that should accompany faster-than-light travel. "This is impossible," declared the Nereid representative. "Our scientists have confirmed that these speeds cannot be achieved with any known technology. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of most stars." The Kalani hive mind speaker's compound eyes reflected the light from the displays. "Our analysis suggests the human ships are somehow manipulating space-time itself. They appear to be creating localized distortions that allow instantaneous direction changes at relativistic speeds." Chancellor Zexai studied the data with growing concern. For 3,000 years, the galactic powers had maintained their dominance through technological superiority. The Vorthak controlled crystal-based energy systems, the Kalani had perfected bioneural networks, and the Nereids dominated quantum computing. Each species contributed their expertise to maintain the balance of power. Now a species they had dismissed as primitive was demonstrating technology that surpassed all of their achievements combined. "We must contact Earth immediately," the Chancellor decided. "We need to understand how they developed this technology." Dr. Alan Ross appeared in the council chamber through a quantum entanglement communicator, another piece of human technology that made the aliens uncomfortable. The physicist looked calm and professional as he faced the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "Dr. Ross," began Chancellor Zexai, "we have detected your ships moving at impossible speeds. Our scientists cannot explain how this is possible." Ross smiled politely. "We call them spatial compression drives. The basic theory involves manipulating the geometry of space-time to create a propulsion effect without actually accelerating the ship itself." The explanation was technically accurate but revealed nothing useful. Ross had been instructed to be helpful without giving away any real information. The Nereid representative leaned forward in his water-filled chair. "Such technology would revolutionize galactic transportation and commerce. Under Article 15 of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty, all member species must share significant technological advances." "I'm afraid there's a problem with that argument," Ross replied calmly. "Earth was never granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. We hold only observer status. The Cooperation Treaty doesn't apply to us." The council chamber fell silent. In their arrogance, they had refused humanity full membership, never imagining that the primitive species would develop technology they might want to share. The Kalani speaker's voice carried an edge of desperation. "Surely Earth understands the benefits of cooperation. We could offer full membership immediately, along with access to our most advanced technologies." Ross considered this for a moment. "That's generous, but humanity has already developed most of the technologies you're offering. Our quantum computers are more advanced than Nereid systems, our bioneural networks exceed Kalani capabilities, and our energy systems make Vorthak crystals look inefficient." This was not entirely true, but it was close enough to make the aliens even more nervous. On the bridge of the Houston, Captain Brooks received new orders from Earth. Fleet Command wanted a demonstration that would make humanity's capabilities absolutely clear to the galactic powers. "Set course for the Sigma Draconis system," Brooks ordered. "Maximum speed." Lieutenant Davis engaged the Alcubierre drive, and space folded around the Houston like origami. The massive battleship disappeared from normal spacetime, existing only as a moving distortion that bent light and gravity around itself. In the Sigma Draconis system, Vorthak and Kalani fleets had been locked in a territorial dispute for decades. Neither side could gain a decisive advantage, so they maintained an uneasy standoff, while their diplomats argued over mineral rights. The Houston materialized between the two fleets without warning. One moment the space was empty, and the next, a human battleship was there, its spatial distortion field creating gravitational waves that interfered with both fleets' targeting systems. Captain Brooks opened a communication channel to both fleets simultaneously. His voice was calm and professional, carrying the authority of someone who held all the advantages. "This conflict ends now," he said simply, "or we end it for you." The Houston did not power up its weapons or raise its shields. It simply existed in the space between the hostile fleets, a reminder that humanity could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. The aliens could not target what existed partially outside normal space-time. Within an hour, both fleets began withdrawing from the system. The century-old territorial dispute was over, ended by the mere presence of a single human ship. Back on Earth, Admiral Clark watched the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Alien governments were demanding explanations, offering treaties, and in some cases, making barely concealed threats. The galaxy had suddenly become a much more interesting place. Dr. Park joined him at the main display. "The next phase is ready, whenever you give the word," she said. Clark nodded. Phase 2 had been about showing the aliens that humanity could move faster than anything they had ever seen. Phase 3 would show them that speed was only the beginning of what Earth's children had learned to do among the stars. The news of humanity's impossible ship spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major civilization was holding emergency meetings to discuss what this meant for the balance of power they had maintained for thousands of years. In the crystal palaces of the Vorthak Empire, military commanders gathered around holographic displays showing human ship movements. The vessels appeared and disappeared without warning, crossing vast distances in hours that should have taken months. What terrified the Vorthak most was that their sensors could detect the ships, but could not predict where they would go next. General Vextar, Supreme Commander of the Vorthak fleet, studied the tactical data with growing alarm. "These humans can strike any target in our territory without warning. Our defenses are useless against an enemy that can appear anywhere instantly." The Kalani Collective was experiencing something new in their species' history: individual panic within their shared consciousness. The hive mind that connected billions of Kalani across hundreds of worlds was fragmenting, as different groups processed the implications of human technology in different ways. Some wanted to immediately ally with humanity. Others suggested preemptive strikes while the humans were still few in number. The conflict within their collective consciousness was tearing at the very foundation of their civilization. The Nereid Consortium, masters of galactic trade and economics, faced a different crisis. Their entire business model depended on controlling the fastest trade routes between systems. If humans could move cargo at light speed, the Nereid transport monopoly would collapse overnight. General Chris Martinez, Earth's new military liaison, received dozens of urgent messages from alien governments. Some offered alliances, others made threats, and a few begged for mercy. He had been chosen for this role because of his ability to remain calm under pressure, and he would need every bit of that skill now. The meeting location was carefully chosen: the neutral moon of Kepler 442c, a small world that belonged to no single species. Representatives from all major galactic powers had agreed to attend, though their reasons varied greatly. Martinez arrived in a standard human diplomatic shuttle, the kind the aliens had seen many times before. What they could not see were the 3 Houston-class battleships maintaining position in the outer asteroid belt, ready to respond within seconds if needed. The meeting chamber was built into the moon's surface, with transparent walls that looked out onto the starfield. Martinez entered to find representatives from 12 different species waiting for him, their body language showing everything from desperation to barely controlled aggression. Ambassador Yilneth of the Vorthak Empire was the first to speak. Her crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy as she addressed the human general. "General Martinez, the Vorthak Empire wishes to offer humanity a formal alliance. In exchange for access to your propulsion technology, we would provide you with 3 star systems, including all mineral rights and colonization privileges." Martinez poured himself a cup of coffee from a thermal container, taking his time to consider the offer. The simple act of drinking the Earth beverage somehow made the aliens more nervous. Coffee had become strangely popular across the galaxy, one of the few human innovations that had spread through alien cultures. "That's a generous offer," Martinez said calmly. "But humanity isn't looking to expand our territory right now. We're quite happy with our current borders." The Kalani representative, a warrior caste individual whose thoughts were only partially connected to the collective, leaned forward. "Perhaps the humans would be interested in joining the Kalani collective. Your species could retain individual identity while gaining access to our shared knowledge network." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "You want to add human minds to your hive mind? That's interesting, but we prefer to keep our thoughts private." The Nereid Consortium's representative was more direct. "If humanity refuses to share this technology, the consortium will be forced to implement trade sanctions. No human goods will be permitted in Nereid space, and no Nereid vessels will service Earth colonies." Martinez set down his coffee cup and looked at the amphibious alien with mild interest. "That would be unfortunate. Of course, we could always deliver our own goods directly to their destinations. Our ships are quite fast." The threat was subtle, but clear. Human vessels could bypass Nereid trade routes entirely, delivering goods faster and cheaper than any existing system. The sanctions would hurt the Nereids more than they would hurt humanity. While the diplomatic meeting continued on Kepler 442c, Captain Brooks was demonstrating human capabilities in a more direct way. The Houston had been ordered to the contested Sigma Draconis system, where tensions between the Vorthak and Kalani had been building for weeks despite their earlier withdrawal. Both alien fleets had returned to the system with reinforcements, apparently believing that humanity's intervention had been a one-time event. They were about to learn otherwise. The Houston materialized in the center of the disputed system, but this time it was not alone. The Denver and the Phoenix, two more ships of the same class, appeared simultaneously at different points in the system. The three human vessels formed a triangle around the alien fleets, effectively surrounding them without appearing to be threatening. Captain Brooks opened a communication channel to all ships in the system. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who held all the advantages. "This system is now under human protection. All military vessels have 1 hour to withdraw beyond the heliopause. Civilian traffic may continue normally." The Vorthak commander, Admiral Kexthul, was outraged. "You have no authority here, human. This system belongs to the Vorthak Empire by right of first discovery." "Actually," Brooks replied, "our historical records show that this system was first explored by the Architect civilization 50,000 years ago. Since we're their designated successors, I'd say we have a prior claim." This was news to everyone in the system. The Architects were a legend, a mythical race that supposedly existed before any current galactic civilization. The idea that humans had any connection to them was shocking. The Kalani fleet commander buzzed his confusion. "The Architects are a myth. No species has had contact with them." "No living species," Brooks corrected. "We found their records in the ruins beneath Earth's ice, along with instructions on how to build ships like this one." The Houston demonstrated its point by briefly shifting into a higher dimensional state, becoming translucent and ghostly. For a moment, the massive battleship existed in normal space and somewhere else simultaneously, proving that human technology went far beyond simple faster-than-light travel. Both alien fleets began withdrawing immediately. Neither the Vorthak nor the Kalani wanted to fight ships that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Back on the neutral moon, the diplomatic meeting was reaching its conclusion. The alien representatives had made their offers and threats, and Martinez had politely declined or dismissed them all. "I want to be clear about humanity's position," Martinez said as he prepared to leave. "We don't want to conquer anyone or control galactic trade. We're not interested in joining collective consciousness or crystal empires. We just want to be left alone to develop our own civilization in peace." He paused at the chamber's exit. "However, we also won't tolerate being treated as primitives or second-class citizens. The next time the Galactic Council meets, Earth expects to be offered full membership with all the rights and privileges that entails." The alien representatives watched him leave, each lost in their own thoughts about what this meant for their civilizations. The galaxy had just gained a new superpower, one that had grown up in secret while everyone was looking the other way. On Earth, President Nicole Green addressed the Global Defense Council in a secure chamber deep beneath the Swiss Alps. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and diplomats who had spent years preparing for this moment. Phase 3 is complete, she announced. The galactic powers now understand that we can defend ourselves and project force anywhere in known space. Phase 4 will show them that we're not the only ones who've been hiding our true capabilities. Dr. Park activated a holographic display showing star charts that extended far beyond currently explored space. The architect ruins on Earth were just the beginning. We found evidence of their civilization in dozens of systems. Some of those ruins are still active. The implications were staggering. If humanity had found a way to communicate with architect technology, they might have access to knowledge that predated galactic civilization itself. The species that had dismissed Earth as primitive were about to discover that they were the ones who had been left behind. Dr. Lisa Park stood before the Galactic Council in the same chamber where Admiral Morrison had been dismissed 6 months earlier. This time, the atmosphere was completely different. The alien representatives sat in tense silence, their attention focused entirely on the human scientist who had requested this emergency session. Park activated a holographic projector that filled the center of the chamber with complex mathematical equations and three-dimensional models. The formulas were unlike anything the aliens had seen before, describing relationships between space, time, and dimensions they had never imagined. "Honored representatives," Park began, "I'm here to explain how human faster-than-light travel actually works. What you've observed is not just advanced propulsion technology. Our ships operate by shifting between different layers of reality itself." Chancellor Zexhi's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. "Dr. Park, our scientists have theorized about higher dimensions, but we've never found a way to interact with them safely." Park smiled and touched a control on her projector. The holographic display changed to show a cross-section of space-time, with multiple layers stacked like sheets of paper. "The key is understanding that what you call normal space is just one layer of existence. There are at least 11 dimensions that we can detect, and our ships can move between them." The Kalani hive mind speaker's compound eyes reflected the light from the display. "This is impossible. Any attempt to enter higher dimensions would destroy matter at the molecular level." "That's true for most species," Park agreed. "But humans are different. We can perceive and interact with multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. It's something in our neural structure that makes this possible." To demonstrate her point, Park activated a second device. The air around her began to shimmer, and suddenly she was standing in 2 places at once. Her primary form remained at the podium, while a translucent copy appeared on the other side of the chamber. The alien representatives recoiled in shock. Several of them began speaking at once in their native languages, their voices filled with fear and amazement. "As you can see," both versions of Park said simultaneously, "humans can exist in multiple dimensional states. This is how our ships achieve their impossible speeds and maneuvers." Meanwhile, in deep space near the Tau Ceti system, Captain Sullivan was leading an exploration mission that would change everything. The Denver, now under his command, approached a dead world that had once been the home of the architect civilization. To normal sensors, Tau Ceti Prime was nothing but a lifeless rock, its surface scarred by ancient battles. But Sullivan's ship carried new equipment designed by Dr. Park's team, sensors that could detect objects existing in parallel dimensions. "Bring us into orbit, Lieutenant Davis," Sullivan ordered. Amy Davis had been promoted and transferred to his ship after her excellent work on the Houston. She engaged the Denver's dimensional drives, shifting the ship partially into higher space. Suddenly, the dead world below them came alive. Massive cities appeared on the surface, their towers reaching toward the sky. Spacecraft moved between orbital platforms, and energy readings indicated a thriving civilization. "My God," whispered Davis, staring at her displays. "They're still here. The architects never died. They just moved to a different dimensional layer." Sullivan opened a communication channel using frequencies that existed across multiple dimensions. This is Captain Sullivan of the Earth vessel Denver. We're seeking contact with the Architect civilization. The response came immediately, in perfect English. Captain Sullivan, we have been waiting for you. Please transport to the surface. Our people are eager to meet their successors. Back at the Galactic Council, Park's demonstration was causing panic among the alien representatives. The Nereid ambassador was frantically consulting with his government, while the Vorthak chancellor seemed to be arguing with invisible advisors. Dr. Park, said the Kalani speaker, if humans can exist in multiple dimensions, what prevents you from simply conquering the galaxy? Our weapons and defenses would be useless against such beings. Park's dual forms smiled at the same time. Because we don't want to conquer anyone. We're explorers and scientists, not conquerors. We're interested in learning and growing, not dominating others. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the positions of human ships throughout known space. Every human vessel you've detected is on a scientific or diplomatic mission. We could have conquered this galaxy years ago if that had been our goal. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. The species they had dismissed as primitive had been capable of galactic conquest for years, but had chosen peaceful exploration instead. Chancellor Zexhai found his voice first. If humanity possesses such power, why did you accept observer status? Why didn't you demand full membership from the beginning? Because we wanted to see what kind of civilizations we were dealing with, Park replied honestly. We needed to know if you were species we could trust and work with, or if you were threats that needed to be contained. The implications were terrifying for the alien powers. They had been tested without knowing it, and their treatment of humanity had determined how Earth would interact with them going forward. On Tau Ceti Prime, Sullivan found himself standing in a vast chamber filled with beings of pure energy. The architects had evolved beyond physical form, existing as living patterns of light and thought that could move between dimensional layers at will. The architect who greeted him appeared as a shifting column of golden light. When it spoke, its voice resonated through dimensions Sullivan could barely perceive. Captain Sullivan, your species has achieved what we hoped for 50,000 years ago. You have learned to see beyond the single layer of existence that traps most life forms. Sullivan felt overwhelmed by the presence of such ancient intelligence. We found your ruins on Earth. Your technology helped us develop our dimensional drives. Those were not ruins, the architect corrected. They were gifts, left for whichever species would eventually develop the ability to use them. We seeded many worlds with the potential for dimensional perception, but humans are the first to achieve it. The golden being moved closer, and Sullivan felt his mind expanded by the contact. Information flowed into his consciousness, showing him the true history of the galaxy. The current galactic powers destroyed our physical civilization, the architect continued. But they could not touch our dimensional existence. We have watched them for millennia, waiting for a species wise enough to inherit our knowledge. Sullivan saw visions of the ancient war that had driven the architects from normal space. The Vorthak, Kalani, and Nereid ancestors had united to destroy what they feared, never realizing they were eliminating the galaxy's greatest teachers. What do you want from humanity? Sullivan asked. Partnership, the architect replied. We will share our knowledge, but only if humans promise to use it wisely. The galaxy needs guides who understand that power must be balanced with responsibility. Back on Earth, Admiral Clark received Sullivan's report in the Hidden Command Center beneath Cheyenne Mountain. The news that the architect still existed and wanted to work with humanity changed everything. Dr. Park's team had been right. Humanity's dimensional abilities were not unique. They were inherited. The architects had designed their gifts to activate only in species that developed the right combination of intelligence, curiosity, and moral restraint. Send the recall signal to all ships, Clark ordered. Bring our people home. We need to prepare for the next phase. President Green joined him at the main display. What's the next phase, Admiral? Clark smiled as he watched the tactical readouts of human ships across the galaxy. We stop hiding what we are, and we start showing the galaxy what it could become. The Age of Secrets was ending. Humanity was about to step forward as the inheritors of the galaxy's oldest civilization, carrying knowledge that could transform every species among the stars. The question was whether the current galactic powers would accept this new reality, or if they would make the same mistake their ancestors had made 50,000 years ago. Professor Tim Carter stood at the edge of the massive excavation site in Antarctica, watching his team work with equipment that had been secret until a few weeks ago. The ice had been carefully melted away to reveal structures that defied every known law of architecture. The buildings seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their walls shifting between solid matter and translucent energy. Carter had been studying ancient civilizations for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The architect ruins beneath Earth's ice were not just archaeological remains. They were active technology, waiting for someone with the right abilities to activate them. Dr. Sarah Walsh, the youngest member of his team, approached with a data tablet showing readings that made no sense according to normal physics. "Professor, the energy signatures are getting stronger. It's like the ruins are waking up." Carter nodded. Ever since Captain Sullivan had made contact with the living architects on Tau Ceti Prime, the ruins on Earth had begun responding to human presence. Lights flickered in corridors that had been dark for 50,000 years, and machines hummed with power drawn from sources beyond normal space. "What have you found in the central chamber?" Carter asked. Walsh led him through passages that seemed to stretch further than their physical dimensions should allow. "It's incredible, Professor. We've found what appears to be a complete record of galactic history, going back millions of years." The central chamber was a vast sphere with walls covered in symbols that shifted and changed as Carter watched. When he touched one of the glowing markings, images filled his mind directly, bypassing his eyes and ears to communicate through pure thought. He saw the galaxy as it had been before any of the current civilizations existed. The architects had been explorers and teachers, traveling between dimensions to study the fundamental nature of reality itself. They had built a network of knowledge that spanned multiple universes, sharing what they learned with any species, capable of understanding. Then came the Great Betrayal. The ancestors of the Vorthak, Kelani, and Nereid species had been among the architect's students, learning advanced technology and dimensional science. But fear had overcome curiosity. The primitive civilizations had united to destroy their teachers, convinced that the architects posed a threat to their independence. The war had lasted only days. The architects, being peaceful by nature, had not developed weapons capable of destroying entire civilizations. Their enemies had no such restraint. Billions of architect worlds had been reduced to ash and radiation, forcing the survivors to retreat into higher dimensions where their attackers could not follow. "Professor," Walsh said urgently, "you need to see this." Another wall displayed, a star map showing dozens of worlds with architect ruins. Earth was just one of many planets where the survivors had hidden pieces of their civilization, hoping that someday a worthy species would find and use them. The architects didn't just leave technology, Carter realized. They left tests. Each world was designed to activate only when a species developed the right combination of intelligence, morality, and dimensional perception. Humanity had passed the test by choosing cooperation over conquest, even when they had the power to dominate the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the exploration vessel Denver, Captain Sullivan was receiving a transmission that would change the course of galactic history. The Golden Architect entity appeared as a hologram, its form shifting between dimensions as it spoke. "Captain Sullivan, we have made a decision. The Architect Council has voted to share our complete knowledge with humanity, but first you must understand the full scope of what this means." Sullivan felt the ship around him fade away as his consciousness was expanded beyond its normal limits. Suddenly, he was seeing the galaxy from a perspective that encompassed all dimensions simultaneously. Stars were not just burning balls of gas, but complex structures that existed across multiple layers of reality. "This is how we see the universe," the architect explained. "Every star, every planet, every living being exists in patterns that extend far beyond what your normal senses can detect." Sullivan watched in amazement as the view shifted to show Earth. The planet was surrounded by layers of energy that pulsed, with the thoughts and emotions of every human being. Similar patterns existed around other worlds, but they were smaller and dimmer. Your species has the strongest dimensional presence we have seen since our own time, the architect continued. But with this ability comes great responsibility. The knowledge we offer could transform your civilization, or destroy it if used incorrectly. Back on Earth, Admiral Clark received reports from research teams around the world. Similar ruins had been found in Siberia, the Sahara Desert, and the ocean floor near Japan. Each site was activating in response to human presence, revealing technology that made their current starships look primitive. Dr. Park joined him in the situation room, her eyes bright with excitement and concern. Admiral, the implications are staggering. The architects left us blueprints for technology that could reshape matter at the molecular level. We could terraform dead worlds in days, or cure any disease by adjusting reality itself. Clark studied the technical readouts with growing understanding. Or we could accidentally destroy the fabric of space-time if we make a mistake. Exactly. The architects are offering us godlike power, but they want to make sure we're ready for it. The test would come sooner than anyone expected. Emergency signals began flooding into Earth's communication networks from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was in chaos as word spread about humanity's connection to the architects. Chancellor Zexhai appeared on the main screen, his crystalline form flickering with panic. Admiral Clark, we request immediate assistance. Several Vorthak worlds are experiencing dimensional storms. Our scientists believe they were caused by attempts to replicate human technology. Similar calls came from the Kalani Collective and the Nereid Consortium. In their desperation to match human capabilities, they had tried to force their way into higher dimensions without proper understanding. The results were catastrophic. Captain Brooks, now commanding a small fleet of human ships, arrived at the first affected system to find space itself twisted into impossible shapes. Vorthak colonies were being pulled into dimensional rifts, their inhabitants trapped between layers of reality. This is what happened to the architects, Brooks realized as he watched the destruction. Their enemies tried to use dimensional technology as a weapon, and it backfired. Using knowledge provided by the living architects, the human fleet began stabilizing the dimensional rifts. It was delicate work that required precise manipulation of spacetime, but gradually the chaos subsided and the trapped colonies were returned to normal space. The rescue mission was repeated at dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Each time, human ships arrived to repair damage caused by reckless attempts to copy architect technology. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive were now completely dependent on human help for survival. On Tau Ceti Prime, the Architect Council watched these events with approval. Their golden forms pulsed with satisfaction as they observed humanity's response to the crisis. They choose to save rather than conquer, one architect observed. Even when their former oppressors are helpless, they offer aid instead of revenge. This confirms our decision, another replied. Humanity has proven themselves worthy successors to our legacy. The final test came when the dimensional storms reached Earth itself. Rather than seek safety in higher dimensions, human scientists worked frantically to stabilize the rifts threatening their homeworld. They could have abandoned Earth and lived safely among the stars, but they chose to stand and fight for their birth world. President Green addressed the world from the emergency command center as reality twisted and reformed around major cities. We will not abandon our home, she declared. Earth gave birth to our species, and we will give everything to protect it. The battle to save Earth lasted 3 days. Human fleets from across the galaxy returned home, their dimensional drives, working in perfect coordination to weave space-time back into its proper configuration. When the last rift was sealed, humanity had passed the final test. The architect entity appeared to Captain Sullivan one last time, its form now seeming more familiar than alien. You have proven yourselves worthy heirs to our civilization. The full knowledge of the architects is now yours to use and protect. As the transmission ended, Sullivan felt a fundamental change in his perception of reality. The knowledge of ages flowed into his mind, showing him wonders beyond imagination and responsibilities beyond measure. Humanity was no longer just another species among the stars. They were the guardians of dimensional reality itself, carrying forward the legacy of the galaxy's first and greatest civilization. 6 months after the dimensional storms nearly tore the galaxy apart, Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned vessel Horizon as it approached the galactic core. The ship was unlike anything that had existed before, built using complete architect knowledge and designed to exist simultaneously across multiple dimensions. Behind him, representatives from every major galactic civilization waited in chambers that defied normal physics. The Vorthak Chancellor, the Kalani Hivemind Speaker, the Nereid Consortium Leader, and dozens of other alien dignitaries had come to witness what would either be the dawn of a new age or the end of everything they knew. Admiral, called Lieutenant, Commander Amy Davis from her station, were detecting massive energy signatures from the galactic core. Something is responding to our approach. Sullivan nodded. According to the architect records, the galactic core contained the Eternal Conclave, the mysterious rulers who had manipulated galactic development for thousands of years. Today, humanity would finally meet the true power behind the galaxy's political structure. The horizon shifted into a higher dimensional state as it approached the core region. Normal space gave way to something far stranger, where stars existed, as conscious entities and planets were thoughts given physical form. Sullivan felt his consciousness expand as the ship's dimensional systems interfaced directly with his mind. "By the void," whispered Chancellor Zexhai as he watched through the ship's viewing ports. "What is this place?" Dr. Lisa Park, now serving as humanity's chief dimensional scientist, consulted readings that existed in mathematics beyond normal understanding. "We're entering a region where reality is actively controlled. The space here has been shaped by beings with complete mastery over the fundamental forces of existence. A presence filled the ship, ancient and vast beyond comprehension. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from the fabric of space itself. Welcome, children of the architects. We are the Eternal Conclave, and we have been waiting for you." The aliens on board the Horizon reacted with shock and fear. The Eternal Conclave had been a myth to most of them, rumors of godlike beings who supposedly guided galactic development from the shadows. Now they were learning that the myths were real. Sullivan felt the presence focus on him personally. "We are not gods," the voice continued, "but survivors. We are what remains of the galaxy's first dimensional war, refugees from a reality where uncontrolled power destroyed everything." Images flooded Sullivan's mind, showing him a galaxy that had once existed in a parallel dimension. Civilizations had developed dimensional technology without wisdom, using reality-shaping power as weapons. The result had been catastrophic, with entire star systems being erased from existence as opposing forces tried to unmake each other. "We escaped to this dimension before our reality collapsed," the Conclave explained. "For millions of years, we have guided the development of this galaxy to prevent the same mistakes from being repeated." Chancellor Zexhai found his voice. "You manipulated our civilizations. You kept us from advancing beyond certain technological limits." "Yes," the Conclave admitted without shame. "We suppressed dimensional research, destroyed civilizations that came too close to reality-shaping technology, and maintained the balance of power to prevent any single species from gaining too much control." The Kalani speaker's compound eyes reflected confusion. "But you allowed the humans to develop dimensional technology. Why?" Sullivan felt the answer before the Conclave spoke it. "Because humans demonstrated something we had never seen before. They gained the power to conquer the galaxy and chose not to use it. They faced destruction and chose to save others rather than save themselves." Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her awe. "What do you want from us?" The presence shifted, and suddenly the ship was filled with beings of pure energy, similar to the architects but older and more powerful. These were entities that had transcended physical existence entirely, becoming living patterns of thought and will. "We want to offer you a choice," the lead entity said. "The Eternal Conclave has grown tired of guiding galactic development in secret. We wish to step back from active involvement, but the galaxy needs guardians who understand the responsibility that comes with ultimate power. Sullivan realized what they were being offered. You want humanity to take your place. Not replace us, the entity corrected. Join us. The architects were teachers and explorers. The conclave are guardians and protectors. Humanity could become bridges between past and future, helping other species develop safely while preserving the knowledge of those who came before. The proposal was staggering. Humanity would become the galaxy's official guardians, with access to technology that could reshape reality itself. But they would also inherit the responsibility of guiding the development of countless civilizations, making decisions that could affect billions of lives. President Green's voice came through the dimensional communicator from Earth. What would this mean for human independence? Would we still be free to develop our own civilization? Freedom and responsibility are not opposites, the conclave replied. The architects were free to explore because they understood their obligations to others. True freedom comes from having the power to choose and the wisdom to choose correctly. Sullivan looked around at the alien representatives on his ship. Species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive were now watching nervously as their fate was decided by the people they had underestimated. What about them? Sullivan asked, gesturing toward the aliens. What happens to the current galactic powers? They will be offered the same choice we once gave the architects, the conclave answered. Learn to use power responsibly, or remain limited to safe technologies. But this time, they will have human teachers to guide them instead of hidden manipulators. The AI decision was made through the same quantum communication network that connected all human colonies. In a process that took only minutes but felt like hours, every human settlement voted on whether to accept the conclave's offer. The result was overwhelming. Humanity chose to accept the responsibility of guardianship, but with conditions. They would guide other species toward dimensional technology gradually, ensuring that each civilization developed the wisdom to use such power safely. The transformation began immediately. The Horizon became the first ship of a new fleet designed to exist across multiple galaxies simultaneously. Earth's colonies were expanded into interdimensional cities that could house representatives from hundreds of different species. Chancellor Zexhai approached Sullivan as the ceremony concluded. Admiral, the Vorthak Empire wishes to formally request human guidance in developing dimensional technology. Similar requests came from every alien representative on the ship. The species that had once formed the galaxy's ruling council now sought to become students of the civilization they had previously scorned. Dr. Park began establishing the new Dimensional Oversight Council, with headquarters existing simultaneously in normal space and higher dimensions. Human scientists would work alongside architect entities and conclave members to ensure that dimensional technology was developed safely across the galaxy. Captain Brooks, commanding the defense fleet, reported, "No hostile activity anywhere in known space." The revelation of humanity's true role had ended all conflicts between major powers, as every civilization recognized that fighting beings who could reshape reality was pointless. Admiral Morrison, now Director of Interdimensional Affairs, watched from her office in New Geneva as the first interdimensional city was completed. The structure existed across 7 different dimensional layers, allowing beings from incompatible realities to interact safely. Ships from across the galaxy approached the station, their crews eager to study at human universities and learn the fundamentals of dimensional science. The tables had completely turned from the days when Earth begged for observer status in the Galactic Council. The final scene of the transformation played out on the bridge of the Horizon as Sullivan prepared for humanity's first mission to a parallel galaxy. Using architect knowledge and conclave guidance, human ships could now travel between entire universes, spreading the message of responsible development to civilizations that had never imagined such possibilities. As the ship prepared to shift into transgalactic space, Sullivan reflected on how far humanity had come. 6 months ago, they had been dismissed as primitives by species that considered themselves advanced. Now they were the teachers and guardians of galactic civilization itself. The universe was vast and strange, full of wonders and dangers beyond. imagination. But humanity was no longer exploring it alone. They carried with them the knowledge of the architects, the wisdom of the conclave, and the responsibility to ensure that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The stars were calling, and Earth's children were finally ready to answer.